Okay, President Deere, whenever you're ready.
All right, well. Call this meeting to order of the West Basin Municipal District Board of Directors and special board meeting. No quorum person.
Yes, Mr. President. Director Gloria Gray. Director Tommy Fabai. Here. Director Desi Alvarez. Here. Director Scott Houston. President Don Deere.
Here.
Mr. President, we do have a quorum, and I believe that is
She'll be joining in a few minutes and I'll let you know once she's
okay.
Agree with you, sure. Okay, is there any comments?
Mr. President, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to provide public comment, please indicate so by raising your virtual hand. And I do not see a request for public comment.
Okay, are there any presentations?
Staff has no presentations today.
Is there an action calendar?
We have no action items today.
So we're now on item 6, information calendar. Fiscal year 2026-27 budget workshop number 3.
Yes, Mr. President. Today we'll be having Wendy O'Kelly, our Chief Financial Officer, walk through our budget workshop number 3 presentation. We do have several of our department managers, both in person and virtually, to run through some of the information and provide an overview. It's important to note that this is our 3rd workshop, and so we are seeking some input and some feedback from the directors. We were made aware that Director Scott Houston is not able to attend today. And so I will be reaching out to him and meeting with him one-on-one to solicit some feedback. Our hope is to potentially present a completed budget at the end of May, which would provide us the 30 days notice for all of our retailers as well as our recycled water customers. We do have a budget workshop for our customer agencies in mid-May. And so we've been soliciting feedback from them throughout this process. Including presenting at the West Basin Water Association, really to just let them know where we are. We've done the same thing with the Metropolitan Water District budget process. And so again, trying to seek as much feedback as we can in order to present a final budget to all of you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Wendy O'Kelly, again, our Chief Financial Officer. And this item begins on packet page 5.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. Today's workshop, we continue, as EJ stated, to our discussion on the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating budget and capital improvement program. We're going to walk you through today a couple of our program services that we continue to offer here at West Basin, and then also the operating revenues, operating expenditures today. There was some slight changes, so I want to be able to point those out to you. Our expenses going down. And then I also followed up by 2 rate options that I've calculated for your consideration. But overall, I do believe the budget that we're presenting, for the proposed budget that we're presenting, it does maintain those essential service levels, but also helps us to continue to invest in our capital improvement projects as well. And just looking at the schedule that the workshop schedule, next slide, that EJ mentioned, again, today is all focused on capital improvement program and funding options. And then we'll have our customer stakeholder workshop, if needed, budget workshop 4, hoping to wrap up a final budget proposal to the board. And then the next 2 slides, you'll see our expenditure highlights. So here, I highlighted for you information technology and also the admin category. What you're seeing here is for the information technology expenditures, there there was a reduction of $232,000 overall. This just really was another look at the expenditures and realizing that there's some subscription costs that could be moved into a different fiscal year. So we were able to reduce the current proposed budget by that 232,000. And also in the same token, we did review, we came to the board recently with a request to increase travel and professional development activities. So there's a small nominal increase to that administrative section, which just accounts for that anticipated travel for next year. But overall, the budget remains at $3.8 million in increased expenditures from the previous year. And in the next slide, you'll see the impact. For fiscal year 26-27, we are total expenditures is $70.5 million. And the majority of our expenses are primarily recycled water, salaries and benefits, and then followed also by overhead. And again, just as a reminder, in the last previous workshop, we did walk through those detailed expenses for recycled water, salary and benefits, and also overhead. But today I wanted to bring a couple departments back to talk about our programming services and some of those high level spending. So in a few moments, you will hear from our manager of communications, Daryl Ramos Young. Then followed by Daryl, will have Matt Bay, who's joining us online for water policy, manager of water policy and resources. He'll walk through conservation and then also some of our imported water, potable water program. Followed by Desiree Quintero, manager of administration, manager of human resources will follow shortly thereafter. Elisa Messinas, and then finally we'll wrap it up with information technology manager Isaiah Suarez. At this time, I'll pass it over to Daryl.
Before you do that, real quick.
Sure.
Every 1% that you want to raise in the rates, the readiness to surcharge is about $240,000.
Yes, the calculation that I have this year is about $262,000.
262.
Yes.
There's no other questions. I'll go ahead and launch into it. Good afternoon,
Mr. President, I apologize. Daryl, I just want to make it known, the Director Gloria Gray has joined us.
Hi, Gloria.
Hi, thank you.
Good afternoon, President Deere, members of the board. Let me provide you with a high-level review of the Public Information Education Department's proposed budget. Of the $817,000 proposed budget, there's three large categories that I'd like to go ahead and highlight. The first one is on this page, at page 11. The largest category for our anticipated expenditures are our education programs at $230,000. What this means is that we can serve approximately 7,000 students every year by contracting instructor services out for our classroom assembly programs via WaterStar, our art contest lessons, and our water recycling facility tours. We go ahead and contract instructional services to Grades of Green, as well as the Roundhouse Aquarium. In order to ensure that all transportation barriers are removed and that all public and private schools that are interested in participating in our water recycling facility tours, a good portion of this budget is dedicated to the complimentary bus service fees. On the next slide, the second largest proposed budget is for our public outreach programs at $198,000. This includes the expenses for contracting professional services to plan and implement our annual Water Harvest Festival. And this expense also includes program expenses for our Water Lab public education programs, which includes 4 Saturday public tours, as well as 3 to 4 Know Your H2O classes, expenses for any VIP facility tours, and any unexpected special event planning that needs to take place. And then on the next slide, the third largest budget proposal is for our advertising costs. On this slide, the bottom left corner, you can see the promotional graphic for the Know Your H2O class, water quality monitoring. That's an example of a social media posts, and we do need to expend dollars for boosting these published posts throughout the communities on an as-needed basis. The middle illustration shows our fire escaping workshop flyer. We do dedicate a good amount of dollars printing out hard copies of these flyers. It can range anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year. And that's because we are actually handing out these printed copies at all the different community outreach events that we attend each year, as well as with the assistance of the South Bay Environmental Services Center. These flyers are put in brochure racks at the different city halls, community libraries, and community recreation centers. And then on the far right, you can see different ads for yesterday's How to Work with Water Agencies event that our procurement team put out. It shows the different ad specifications, the different sizes that are required by different e-blasts, e-newsletters, and online publications, depending on what kind of ad space they have, whether it's a landscape banner for their top of their web page, or a sidebar, or what they call a skyscraper ad space that's vertical along the side of a newsletter article, for example. Such ads can run anywhere from $200 up to over $1,000. So again, this is all lumped in together for our advertising budget of $83,000. So that's the Public Information and Education Department budget, the highest level for right now. If there are no questions, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Matt Day, Manager of Water Policy. Yes.
So you gave us the numbers that you have in the budget. How do these compare to last year's numbers?
We have increased the advertising budget by about $10,000. And we have reallocated some of the expenses for our public information education budget. We have dedicated $10,000 more towards our public outreach programs for unknown expense increases because of their varying tariffs and increase of services. But we have made reductions in other areas. So overall, for our department budget, there's a $19,000 decrease in the proposed budget.
So overall, and the proposed budget is 230 plus 198 plus 83.
And these are only the high level 3 categories. This does not show our whole budget of $817,000.
I wanted to see that. Where can I go?
We actually, Director Alvarez, we actually sent out that detailed, I believe it was about a month ago. The board secretary sent it out to all the directors.
Oh, all right, then I'll hold back and look.
So last time what we did is we showed kind of the departmental budgets with the increases and decreases within each of the departments, and then we highlight those through the talking points. This is more of an overview of some of the discretionary programs and projects that are funded through each of these departments. Okay, Matt, if you want to move forward.
Sure. Good afternoon, directors. So I'll talk about my 2 departments, first being water use efficiency. This is one of our very visible programs that we offer to our communities. And I know that Gus Mesa, who leads our water use efficiency and conservation efforts, presents on our programs every month. So I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but I will just kind of speak to the things that you can see here on these slides. So our rain barrel program is something that we've been doing for about 10 years now. As you can see, we've given away more than 18,500 rain barrels. There was a little bit of a downward trend just this last year in terms of the total number of rain barrels that we gave away. However, staff is proposing to keep the same level of rain barrels for this next year. And what we want to do is we're taking into account some of the feedback we received from the directors about when we offer the events. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a little bit later this year, and then we're going to space out the events about a month apart rather than having them kind of back-to-back weekends. This will give us more time to do outreach and market the program, and I think we'll be able to see kind of a resumption back to the levels that we had seen the last few years. So there's a very small
And Matt-
increase. Yeah.
Matt, if I could just touch on that, I wanted to give Matt and Gus Mesa some credit here because they did kind of a deep dive analysis of all of the years that we've been offering the Rain Barrel program and looking at specifically how many rain barrels we give out each year, what months that we've done that, because I know the feedback was kind of what months are better. We've done it anywhere from the early start of September all the way into March, April, May. And so what Matt is telling you there is that by spreading them out, it allows us to actually develop a division specific marketing effort. So because we've utilized obviously social media, but also door hangers, our website, the South Bay Cities Council of Governments email newsletters. So we're going to try to spread them out a little bit so that we can really hone in on each division and market it. And we think that we'll be right back at our original numbers. So past years. Sorry about that, Matt.
No, thank you, EJ. And that's just a reminder that about half of that program is funded through Metropolitan's MAA program. So only about half of that budget, impacts our budget. The next one on the list there is Parkways. This is another program that's fully funded through Metropolitan's MAA program. We budgeted a slight increase this year, up to about 145,000 from I think it was 115,000 last year. However, there is a chance, I mentioned this at the last budget workshop, that we could receive a IRWM grant from the state that would actually give us a budget of about $1.55 million. However, all of that will be state funded. So again, no impact to West Basin's budget for that. But that's a very popular program that we've run two seasons now, and it really benefits our disadvantaged communities. So we'd like to continue to offer that program. And then the major kind of cost area here is the grass replacement rebate programs. This is something, again, we've done for a long time. We do have a very kind of specific goal that Gus and I put together each year. This year, we want to kind of focus on a couple different areas. One is the public agencies, because they are going to have to comply with the new non-functional turf irrigation ban starting next year. So we want to put some funding to help out those entities, and then also continuing to help our residents, including our disadvantaged communities. So there's about $445,000 that we have targeted for the grass replacement rebate program this year. In the past couple years, we've been able to utilize some grant funding to offset that cost. Unfortunately, one of our grants is now expired. We're trying to extend our USBR grant to next year. We haven't heard back yet if that'll be successful. But either way, unless we hear otherwise from the board, we would like to continue to fund these programs. And then finally, it's not on the list here, but our landscape design is yes, go ahead, EJ.
I apologize. Director Alvarez had a question.
On the grass replacement program, you're basically going to fund it at the same level as this year?
As last year?
As 25, 26, yes.
I think we have a slight increase of maybe of about, I want to say it's about 60 $600,000 more, just because we
Oh.
wanted to try to capitalize on the non-functional turf momentum that we're seeing with some of our cities. So we did provide a slight increase to that account.
And
Yeah.
where's that money gonna come from? Because isn't Matt gonna not have as much money, in 26, 27 as it did in 24, 20, or 25, 26?
Well, yeah, they're still going to provide kind of their base amounts of, it depends on which, if it's CII or public agency, but it's either $2 or $3 per square foot. And then West Basin would be kind of providing the additional supplemental funding on top of that, anywhere from $1 to $3, depending on which. For like our disadvantaged communities, it could be $3. For our public agencies, it might be a dollar or two is what we're proposing.
Okay, but overall, is the budget that West Basin, the funding for the budget that West Basin is putting in equal to or greater than this year, which is 25, 26?
Right. It would be an increase. There would be an
Will be an
increase.
increase. And
Yes.
is
Yes.
that because of the level of funding that Met has put in for conservation?
In part, Director Alvarez, we were expecting to have, I think, a higher level of funding from Metropolitan Water District. And so we wouldn't have had to provide as much to try to get it up to a level where we think that we'll see that, that higher participation. So because that's now dropped back down to the lower base amounts, we are proposing to have a little bit of a higher buy-in from West Basin to kind of make up that difference. Yes.
Okay. And then you had mentioned the disadvantaged community subsidy that we have, or program, I should call it.
Yes, the Parkway program.
That can stay at the same level?
Well, if we just fund it without the state grant, it will be a slight increase, I think, of about $30,000, but that's all coming from MAA funding. If we were to get the grant, then that whole program would be bumped up significantly to about 1.55 million. But again, that's all externally funded.
And just for some context there, that's referring, Matt, to the integrated regional water management funding that we were able to capitalize on because it was underutilized within the region. Matt and his team were able to kind of pounce when that money became available because they're not going through another funding round anytime soon. And so our team was able to jump in there and potentially get that funding.
Great. Any other questions on that before I move to the next slide? Okay, then I'll move on. So South Bay Cities Council of Governments, that's another organization that the board is very familiar with. We're continuing that partnership with them that we've enjoyed. They do a great job of representing our interests out in the community. We're proposing to fund that at the same level of $175,000 for the next fiscal year. So it'd be the same as it is this year. And then fire escaping classes and resources is a very small amount. It's about $10,000, but it is also MAA funded. We actually had 5 events last year that we budgeted. This year it's only going to be 3, so it's a slight reduction in that budget. But again, that's MAA funded. And then the last one on the list there is we have our regional water use efficiency programs. Currently, it's the Your Smart Yard program that's up in the Malibu and Topanga area. I presented on this at the last budget workshop, but it's about a $176,000 budget. It's a decrease from last year, but that's all funded through state funding and a little bit of MAA funding. So our total kind of discretionary budget for water use efficiency is about $1.1 million, and it is a slight increase from last year's levels overall.
Question on that one, on the fire escaping, why is that in water conservation or water use efficiency and not in education programs or the public outreach?
I think probably just because there's a tie with the firescaping and the native landscaping. There's kind of some overlap there. You know, I wasn't there when the program was initially placed there, but I think that's kind of the tie, is that it has to do with that landscaping aspect of it. But it's very, very much, you know, a partnership between us and the PI department. So, you know, I don't think it's something that if we wanted to move it, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I think that's how it originated.
I believe in the presentation on the public education, part of the cost there was for fire escaping or fireproofing.
For the public information education slide, I was using the fire escaping class flyer as an example of the printed collateral that our department's responsible for getting out in the community.
So who in the end puts this together?
So public information education is responsible for the marketing, and water policy is responsible for developing and actually implementing this fire escaping class itself.
Again, these things have been funded through the MAA funds, which are typically managed under Matt Bay, as well as Gus Mesa.
Okay. Next slide. So I'll move into water policy resources development. This is about a $550,000 overall budget this year. That is a decrease of about $250,000 or $260,000 from the current fiscal year. And about 60% of the costs are allocated to our state and federal advocacy teams, Neomela Pappas and Van Scoyoc Associates. And I just remind the board that these are levels that we've kind of held steady for at least 6, if not 8 years now, I believe. So those costs have not gone up, any time recently. Another kind of piece of what we do is we support our customers, our customer agencies through a number of different means. One of the things that we're doing this year is utilizing the water loss funding that Metropolitan Water District offers. That's not something that we've done anytime recently. So there is $50,000 that's allocated toward that. However, that is being funded fully by the MAA funds. Other piece of it is customer support. As I mentioned, that's about $80,000 that we have allocated towards them. That is come out of our own budget, and it includes things such as the LARIAC program, which we got into last year. That's a 3-year commitment. It helps us help them meet the guidelines for the conservation framework, for the non-functional turf irrigation bans that are coming up. So it allows us to kind of provide those types of programs that our customer agencies are most in need of. And we're constantly in contact with them to figure out what those needs are. So we do provide some sort of funding for some of those programs. And then on the reporting side, really the only one here is, well, the urban water management plan, which we're doing this year. That was the big expense, about $250,000. That goes away next year. That's why we have such a big decrease next year. But the annual water supply and demand assessment is something that we do every year, and that is at a cost of about $15,000 that we put in our budget every year. Next slide. And then, yeah, as EJ mentioned, we're always looking for grants and new external funding sources. We talked about the one for our Parkway Disadvantaged Community Program. So we do have some funding that we put into our budget for grant consultants. We've been working with them the last couple years to identify opportunities and to apply for them. Of course, the federal government has been kind of shut down in the grants department the last 9 months to a year. However, new opportunities are starting to open back up. And so we will be looking to apply for those funds here very shortly. And then the last program there is the water bottle filling station. Again, I know this is a program that the directors are all very familiar with. We would like to continue to fund that at the $35,000 level. That provides $7,000 for each of our 5 divisions. And Tammy Hurley Hyde does a great job of managing that program for the department. So again, a total of $550,000 for the water policy and resources, which again is a decrease of about $250,000 from last year. And with that, I'm happy to take any other questions.
Hey, good afternoon, directors. I will be discussing 3 of the administrative department's main expenditures, not including election services. The administrative department works to coordinate community outreach sponsorships with the board. For fiscal year 25-26, we have supported 49 community events, which have allowed the district opportunities to share information about initiatives and promote water conservation. To date, including the sponsorships approved at Monday's board meeting, we have allocated $74,150 and have a remaining budget amount of $850. On packet page 19, you can see a listing of the outreach events we have sponsored and the amount of sponsorship for each. Moving to packet page 20, you will find information about our district sponsorships, which allow for collaboration and engagement with industry partners as well as the community. The board has approved 14 sponsorships, allocating $41,200 of our $55,000 budget. On packet page 21, you can see a listing of the approved sponsorship events and the amount of each sponsorship. On packet page 22, you will find information on our district memberships. Memberships include chambers of commerce and professional memberships. On packet page 23, you will find a listing of our memberships. West Basin is a member of 22 chambers of commerce and 19 organizations. I would like to note that over the years, we have seen an increase in membership fees. In fiscal year 23-24, the total cost was approximately $174,000. In fiscal year 24-25, the total cost was approximately $183,000. This fiscal year, we have spent approximately $190,000. Should the board wish to consider moving forward with our current Chamber of Commerce and Professional memberships, we would recommend an updated budget of $200,000 for fiscal year 26-27 to allow for all of the membership increases. If the board would like to review the list and provide alternate recommendations, we are happy to do that as well. Thank you, and I am happy to answer any questions on my portion of the presentation.
Mr. President, if I could just add on here, it's important to note that last year at the board's direction, staff did an audit of all of our chambers of commerce, looking at not just the services provided, but the services that are available to West Basin, how to maximize those services, and really ultimately looking at how to engage with the chambers at the cheapest yet most opportunistic partnership. And so what you see here is obviously a continuation of those chambers of commerce. And staff does have the intention to maximize those memberships.
When we say maximize the membership, what does that mean?
So all of our programs and projects have obviously a target audience, the business community. We think when you look at non-functional turf and the role of CII will play a significant part as far as how we market that. So trying to market our programs that are available to the commercial sector, our partnerships with our individual recycled water customers are typically all contained within numerous chambers of commerce. So again, the effort with the chambers of commerce has been with West Basin for some time. What we're going to try to do is maximize those partnerships. The board has chosen to be members of each of these, and what we want to do is get every dollar value that we can.
So what I heard in terms of maximizing is the only specific that you referred to was our water conservation. Do we really, in addition to what we already do we get any more benefit from all of these chambers of commerce?
I think it depends year to year. If I was to just kind of go back through my years of effort in with the Chambers of Commerce. I would just add, yes, marketing all of our programs, education as far as the business community. And then historically, we have actually done quite a bit of advocacy within the chambers, not only for West Basin's programs and projects, but sometimes in legislation like a water bond and or water use efficiency legislation. So Daryl, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yes, at this month's Public Information Education Committee, we actually did a thorough breakdown of the completed audit for all these chambers. So now the Public Information Education Department has a very thorough understanding of what the benefits are for membership for each of these chambers, which are the free advertising benefits versus the paid advertising costs that we will have to incur. For some of these chambers, even though you're a member, you still have to pay for advertisement in their newsletter or ad placements on their website or participate in their e-blasts that are weekly or monthly. So through this audit, we have a thorough understanding of our benefits because now we understand the communication tactics that each of these chambers has with their own memberships. We can align our marketing schedules for our different education conservation programs with their outreach to their own members. So we can leverage all these chambers now within our own marketing plan for the upcoming year too.
So when you did that, all of these chambers give you the same value, or are there some that don't give you very much value?
It's variable from chamber to chamber. Some are a lot more active, like the Beverly Hills Chamber, very active, but it's a very expensive membership. And although this membership of $1,075 is the second tier, if we were to go to the very basic tier, we would not be eligible for any of the advertisement benefits.
So good afternoon, President Deere and board members. I'm here to discuss and give you a breakdown of the human resources budget. So on page 24, this slide outlines our legal service budget, which is set for $100,000 for next year. The majority of the work is tied to employment-related matters, primarily union negotiations, employment relation issues, investigations, and then the update of the administrative code and MOUs. The key driver of these costs is union activity. These types of negotiations require specialized labor counsel, and costs can fluctuate depending on the complexity and the duration of the services. We also rely on legal support to help manage risk, whether that's handling claims, ensuring compliance with labor laws, or just advising on sensitive employee matters. It is also important to note that being proactive with this with legal involvement also prevents more significant and costly issues down the road. So from an HR perspective, this budget ensures that we are protecting the district while making sound and defensible employment decisions. Are there any questions in regards to legal services before I move on?
Have there been any changes over the years, any trends?
In regards to,
Total amount spent?
there has, due to the situation that the district has come into within the last year, there will be a significant increase due to the activity regarding the labor negotiations.
President Vera, I would just say that there's a bit of a known as West Basin moves forward through this process. I think from our perspective, we just want to be prepared, especially as both members of the ASME 1902 as well as management learn to work together. I think that there will naturally be a bit of a process to get that done. Not to say that we will see these significant increase in our costs, but we do want to be prepared for as we move through the unknown of it.
So page 25. So this budget is focused on developing and retaining our workforce. You'll see the allocation is evenly split, 40% for the employee training, 40% towards tuition reimbursement, and a small amount for the professional memberships. Training includes technical skills, certifications, and leadership development, especially important as we continue building internal capacity. Tuition reimbursement supports employees pursuing degrees or certifications aligned with the district needs, which helps us grow our talent from within. This is especially important in a specialized field like the water industry, which recruitment can be very challenging. Membership ensures HR and leadership stay current on the regulatory changes and best practices in the public sector. And then overall, this investment supports retention, succession planning, and operational efficiency. Well, are there any questions that I may answer in regards to this slide?
So on the memberships, that's about a little under $30,000 for 4 organizations. Are these, do we need to belong to all of those organizations?
I'm sorry?
Do we need to really belong to all 4 of the organizations you have under memberships?
It is essential to have memberships within these organizations. Society of the Human Resources Management is a nationwide organization that helps us to make sure that we are in compliance and ensure that we follow the HR procedures throughout our agency.
Mhm.
Public sector human resources is just that. For public sector, there is a difference between private and public HR regulations, so we need to understand that as well. So it's good to be a part of that association. Southern California Public Labor Relations Council does provide workshops and sessions in regards to the labor negotiations and labor relations, especially now that it is important for the agency to understand how that works. And then the Public Association Risk Management is also for liability reasons so that we don't fall into any risk issues. So that is also to give us, to keep us abreast of any issues that may come up in liability, in the liability area.
So on the risk management, isn't that something our attorneys do?
It starts with HR, to be honest with you, as far as assessing what that is, what that liability is. We are the, I would say, the middle person. So we work with our insurance company and also counsel in regards to any risk issues that happen in the district.
And Director Alvarez, if I could just add to that real quick. So the one thing I would mention about West Basin's Human Resources Department, with 50 employees, all varied as far as our skill sets and the hiring and such, and then of course the interns. It's important to note that our Human Resources Department consists of 2 individuals. These associations actually provide services and assistance to actually aid them as they do the work of more than the 2 people that are there. You mentioned the risk management. Most public agencies similar to West Basin would probably have somebody dedicated to risk management. And of course, we actually utilize our Human Resources Department, obviously this association, but also our legal counsel. So it's a mix and match of how we get things done. But these associations obviously provide services to the 2 individuals there that make up that department.
So I would agree wholeheartedly with one of the best departments we have in our Human Resources Department. It's probably the most efficient one we have of all of our departments. So kudos to you. I'm not convinced by the arguments that I hear that you really need to belong to all these associations, but so be it.
And the last slide for HR is page 26. So this is our workforce development and inclusion slide, which is one of our most strategic investments. This program supports district-wide training for both management and staff with a focus on communication, leadership development, and psychological safety. The goal is to create a high-performance culture and strengthen how our teams work together. To provide some context, the Gallup poll, the recent Gallup poll, shows that regionally or nationally, only 31% of employees are engaged. 52 are not engaged and 17% are actively disengaged. So that means nearly 70% of our employees are not fully engaged, which directly impacts productivity, morale, and retention. So as HR sees it, we also know that replacing a specialized employee can cost anywhere from $40,000 to $200,000 just to replace that employee. And so what that research shows, basically says 42% of overturn is preventable through better management and communication, exactly what this program is designed for. So this is not just a training investment, it is also a cost avoidance strategy. By investing in our people, we improve performance, reduce turnover, and ensure long-term operational stability. This is one of the few areas where we can directly influence culture and outcomes across the organization. If you have any questions in regards to this slide, as far as our workforce development.
Maybe you can get back to me later. I don't need you don't need to go into detail. How can it cost $200,000 to replace somebody?
Well, you're talking also when we,
You
okay,
can do it later. Just send me a little
the breakdown. Sure.
example and write up.
Sure.
I just find that a very difficult number to believe.
Sure. And that concludes HR's presentation. If there's any additional questions in the 3 slides, I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. Good afternoon, President Deere, Board of Directors. Isaiah Suarez, IT Manager. I'll be briefly going over the IT department program highlights, what we're focusing on for the next fiscal year. I've broken this down into 3 categories. As many of you are familiar with, IT is an internal service department. We're here to service the other departments and provide different services. Our primary goal, we don't see ourselves as a cost center, but we see ourselves as a force multiplier. We're helping staff, not alone one person do the job of 1.5, 2, et cetera. So as part of that, we actively take a look at our systems, our applications, and products we use. And we try to focus on developing a life cycle plan to understand how it benefits the district. And as part of that, we look at utilizing systems across departments to reduce costs. Some of those examples that's going to be happening this fiscal year is identifying a replacement financial ERP system. West Basin has been with our system 10+ years. It's costly. And then talking to other agencies, the value we're getting out of our system is not there. Additionally, we're looking at expanding usage of systems we already own to maximize the functionality to prevent us from buying other systems. A good example of something we recently completed is actually in collaboration with the HR department is we modernize their onboarding process. And as part of monitoring that onboarding process, we're able to check off requirements around our retention schedule. And that's just an example of one way of creating efficiency at the district. We're also going to be evaluating different AI products and AI opportunities to reduce manual workload on our staff to improve efficiencies. The next item is cybersecurity initiatives. In collaboration working with Water Policy, the district, we were awarded a grant to resolve cybersecurity items. We put in for 4 different projects. Our final major project of that is a cybersecurity assessment, which we're in the process of completing now. As part of that assessment, they're going to be providing issues that need to be resolved. Some of those items we have been resolving have been going on that were critical. Others require future exploration. As part of cybersecurity, there's another aspect that is often forgotten or not included, and that's physical security. Making sure your assets are protected from attackers is the first step to protecting the system. So we're doing a lot of internal security audits to evaluate our current posture and then looking at how we can improve that. And some of that is even working with federal partners such as CISA. We did have to put that on hold as that department is currently shut down as part of the current government shutdown. I did hear they came to approve budget that needs to be signed by the president. So hopefully that agency opens up and resume business soon. Additionally, West Basin At our agency, we have a lot of older equipment, a lot of older hardware. As you guys are very familiar with our DCS project, that's a larger project. IT is supported as that. So some of this, we are addressing any deficiencies or security risks with our hardware. And some of this is ongoing maintenance with our firewalls. Our firewalls, we have to replace once the vendor says they're end of life, because that's our first line of defense from external attackers. And as part of it becoming end of life, that means there's no longer security updates, security patches. And these devices are ongoing attack, they're ongoing review. So you may remember recently the federal government just announced a new ban on consumer grade networking equipment. This is all part of the posture to take more security, proactive response in our cybersecurity infrastructure. Additionally, we're looking at replacing any other hardware or any other items that could put us in a compliance violation. As there's other equipment that we'll be looking to address this year to make sure we're compliant with the future ADA, American Disabilities Act requirements around our website, our district meetings, and other systems and applications. Now I'll go ahead and open up for any questions. Thank you.
That's nice. Next section is capital improvement program discussion. And directors, I'm going to go ahead and start this off, and then I'll hand it over to Susanna Levy, Manager of Engineering, in order to discuss each of the individual project costs. First and foremost, though, let me start by saying that I took a very close look at the needs and the costs of the CIP program this year, with a specific eye to address three separate drivers and goals. First, to achieve redundancy where needed and dependability of our systems. Secondly, to produce the water quality and the capacity that we are obligated to produce, whether it be by permit or by customer commitments. And thirdly, of course, just looking with an eye for responsible investments. We wanted to ensure that the projects that we brought forward this year, many of which are just continuation from last year or previous years, but any new projects specifically have been prioritized. And of course, we'll be searching for opportunities for outside funding and just overall sense of using our public funds wisely. Next slide, please. Of course, we have several challenges in meeting these drivers and goals, not the least of which is the influent quality that we receive from Hyperion. The fact that our system is filled with aging infrastructure. We do have years of deferred maintenance within this system. Because we've been an early adopter of a lot of technologies, many of those are obsolete at this point. Of course, we have been plagued on occasion with planned, unplanned, and emergency shutdowns in the system, making it challenging to produce the qualities and quantities that we are obligated to. And of course, the elephant in the room is, where do we go next? Where does the next 10 years take the recycled water program, specifically with the opportunities that we have with some of our partner agencies? And so I'll touch on each of these in the next couple of slides, and let me know if you have any questions, but we can go to the next slide. I don't think this one is news to anyone, that the water quality received from Hyperion is often challenging. That really is, it comes in two categories. There's the frequency of water excursions or water quality excursions that we receive, how often those occur, and then there's the magnitude of those, how high the concentrations of the contaminants get that have an impact on our ability to treat that water to the quality and quantity that we are trying to achieve. And so just on the bottom of the slide there, you see two graphics. It's the exact same graphic, but the left-hand side is a 5-year view of our water quality, feed water quality, turbidity specifically, and that's the amount of material that's suspended in the water when we get it. On the left-hand side, it's really about an 18-month view of that same trend. And you can see that in the last year or so, we've actually been enjoying a period of pretty good water quality up until the last month or so. And so we have been in communication with our partners at the city of Los Angeles to understand this. There's only so much we or they can do, obviously, but nonetheless, I think it's no surprise to anybody in this room that the frequency and the magnitude of these water quality excursions make it challenging on a day-to-day basis to achieve the water quality that we are targeting. Next slide, please. Aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. Again, nothing new here. I'm sure the board all knows that we just celebrated our 30th year of recycled water. It is interesting to note, though, that the majority of our facilities were constructed within that first 10 years of the 30 years that we just celebrated. And what that means is many of those facilities are 20+ years old. Because of that water quality that we've experienced over that 30 years, because of a significant amount of deferred maintenance within that time period, it's getting harder and harder to maintain those assets. Many of them are reaching the end of their life, or their lifespan has been accelerated because of the conditions they've been operated in. And as a consequence, you'll see that most of our capital improvement program is focused on replacement and rehabilitation of the assets, more so than adding new assets into the system. Next slide, please. I mentioned at the top of this discussion, the obsolete technologies in addition to the deferred maintenance. You just got a collage of various items here, but specifically our microfiltration technologies that we began our program with have all but been replaced. We have one more system that remains an antiquated microfiltration technology. We are looking ahead to the future on what to do with that system, but it will require virtually a complete replacement. Our DCS upgrade program that the board has heard quite a bit about this past year, that is replacing the antiquated brain of the entire system. You can imagine that the computer programs, the hardwares that are available today are very different than they were in 1995. You just look at your own computer in front of you and remember what you were using in 1995 to know that technology has advanced along the way. And of course, we've upgraded where we could with each of our new facilities. But what that means is we also have a Frankenstein of a facility in that we have old systems integrated right next to new systems. And that in itself can be a challenge in trying to maintain and operate those systems on a day-to-day basis. Next slide, please. This slide will be very familiar to the E&O committee. We review this each month. This is the barrier production, and it's just an example. It's just an easy example of the planned, unplanned, and emergency shutdowns that we've had. This year, I'm very happy to say that the majority of these shutdowns were not related to our facilities, with the exception of the very first one at the beginning of this fiscal year, which was on our site and did cause a shutdown. All of these other shutdowns indicated here are related to our partners, be it power outages or, in this case, the LA County's maintenance on their injection well system. And so this past year is kind of fresh or new in that majority of our shutdowns were completely unrelated to us, through outside forces. But in years past, we've certainly had our share of shutdowns related to asset failure and critical assets just going down. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, we're looking at all these, ensuring that we're maintaining our current obligations to the community through our recycled water program, but also while thinking ahead to what the next years will bring. It is a bit murky still with what role the district will play in any of these projects, but we are very considerate of the opportunities that we have in the next 10 years or so. And we're trying to make sure that we're not just throwing money down a hole, ultimately investing into an asset that may become stranded or obsolete if and when are able to take advantage of these other project opportunities. And so I will pause there for any questions and then hand it over to Susanna to start talking about some of the actual dollars.
Eric, I just wanted to say, that was a great introduction. Very detail oriented and laid out. Susanna, I'm going to ask you to do the unachievable. I'm going to need you to move through this pretty quickly. We will lose a quorum at about 3 o'clock. And I believe Director Deere will need to leave at 2:30.
No, I don't think we.
George.
George did. My,
He says you have.
he is one. I do.
Yeah, there's no appointment, there's no appointment.
Oh, I think it's the physician.
Yes, yes.
That's right. Okay.
So what I'd like to do, Suzanne, if you could work with Wendy to kind of move through this with great care and detail, but I would also like to get to the summary slide at the end. I think it's imperative that we leave you with kind of the lasting comment about where our recommendation for the budget will be. Again, I'm happy to meet with each of the directors individually, but Suzanne, if you could go through each of the projects, because we have about a half hour. Okay.
So that I don't interrupt Susanna like I was going to. That was gonna interrupt you a lot. Based on what I've seen. I'll just go back and make a comment following up on Eric's comment. We don't know what's gonna happen in the next 5 to 10 years. We do need to be very cautious. We do not want to end up with any stranded assets. So our investments are very expensive. And anything that we do needs to be thought out in a very comprehensive manner, meaning that we're making an investment. The investment shouldn't just be because we have an immediate need for a repair. It should be looking down the road as to how this is going to function 10 or 15 years. And if we don't know, we need to really be very, very careful that there's something that cannot wait. And I fear that some of these things can wait, and hence my earlier comment that I won't interrupt you, but overall, I do think that the advice that Eric said, that we do need to be very cognizant about stranded investments, and the cost of these investments should prevail in everything that we want to do.
We agree, Director.
We agree.
Sure you
All right, I'll try in the next 15
do.
minutes.
Keep my mouth shut so you can get through.
Okay, so we'll move through the 5-year CIP program quickly. With all the scripts that I'll call them. But as Eric, thank you, directors, and good afternoon. But as Eric mentioned, a lot of the challenges and the drivers, and they might have been consistent in the prior years. There are a couple factors that may contribute to the differences on how staff been evaluating and looking at moving projects forward. One of them is that we have a new O&M contract. They are on, part of the task is to look at the conditions assessment and provide a new perspective, what are needed at our facilities. But the other one is ability for the engineering department to work with Wendy under her new leaderships to look at how we can finance and improving our budgeting process. So I believe that West Basin is at a point that we can really prioritize and move forward these projects in the next few years with the responsible investment as drivers in mind in particular. But not to belay the points, the slides, we really highlighted like some of the struggles and then the factors that that we contemplated in putting together the CIP programs. These projects really helping to sustain reliability and rebuild redundancies. And these projects really allowing us to meet the permit requirements and
customer agreements and obligations. And then lastly, I think one of the major factors that go into the CIP program is the timing of the impending shutdowns that will be coming up as part of the BCS project. So staff looked really hard into that when we put together the cost and the projects. So how does all these affect the 5-year program? We can go to the next slide. So with all of those drivers and all that in mind, staff, we looked at the program and what's changed compared last year's 5-year estimates to this year's 5-year estimates, that we have updated the scope, and then we looked at different projects and we align and redistribute the costs over the 5 years. And as a result, we're able to lower the 5-year average from the 30 millions to 23 millions. Next slide, please. This graphic is just another interpretation of the 5-year program, which includes a total of 115 millions without labor. And majority of these, we are investing onto the aging infrastructures at our facility, ECL and Hyperion, as well as the satellite facilities. Keeping in mind that those are tied to fixed payment from our refinery customers. The next 2 slides are just breaking down this 115 millions and spreading across the 5 years and allow you to see how the spending will be in the coming years. This time, we're not anticipating any new major facility expansions. Okay, we're keeping in mind the future pure water investment in mind, but we are still obligated to maintain the level of service to our customers. So a lot of these 80%, the purple projects, they are just really needed in retaining and maintaining sustainability and redundancy. Next slide. This is another look at the 5-year CIP program. Just divvy up all the projects into the major and minor projects that we believe are needed to help maintain redundancy. And we cover a lot of the aging infrastructure and system capability that are lost over the year due to deferred maintenance and just obsolescence. For satellite facility, these are major R&R projects that are supported by fixed payments from our refinery customers. And our refinery customers, we've been in discussion with them. They are aware of the district's long-term directions, including the potential transitions to the pure water. But in the meantime, they are continue to rely on West Basins to provide that consistent and reliable level of service. So these projects are essential to maintain the level of service while the timing and the details of pure water supply continue to be developed and evolved. And so with this near-term investment, they're critical to sustain operations for the next 10 to 15 years. I'll stop here with any questions before I move on to the 26-27 CIP. Okay, turn to the next slide. One more. Yeah. Okay. Here we're going to go through the proposed 26-27 CIP budget. This table may look familiar to you because this is what the table shown in workshop 2. With the difference is that with the addition of the 2 columns in the middle, highlighting the remaining projects that are in this $20 million budget, projects that have been committed or started. However, we believe these timings of these projects are crucial in order to take advantage of the upcoming shutdowns. The next set of slides, we will walk through the individual projects of the 5 categories highlighting in this table. And I won't go through in details due to time, but I'm happy to stop any place that you would like to have more details on.
Susanna, could I suggest, directors, that this table is kind of the holistic view of the entire program? The subsequent slides will break the projects that show the discrete projects by these categories. This would actually be a good place to stop or pause and skip the slides which are in your packet, unless you prefer to hear about each category individually. Okay.
Are we skipping on the next set of slides?
Why don't we just go through each slide and you can do just a quick overview of this, what the slide entails, and then that way if they want to stop on a slide.
Right, so the first category is the new infrastructures. These are a total of 4 projects included in the FY 26-27 budget, and total $330,000. A lot of these will be funded by the developers, and Matt's and his group's help, the 2 projects in the middle, we're trying to secure outside funding. Next slide. The next 2 slides are the major facility on our projects. There's a total of 13 projects with a total of $12.5 million. Of this 13 projects, 3 of the projects made up about $10 million out of the $12.5 million. And some of these projects that highlighted in the 5th column, the projects that have not started, these are really should be categorized as critical to begin because of the planning that is required. So that will allow us to line up with the planning shutdown, the planned shutdown that is coming up, such as the bulk chemical, the product pump PFD projects 10092 that will allow us to recover some of the PFD capacity and capability for our Title 22 systems, and then the RO system that are really old and need some rehab needs, help us to ensure that the next 10 to 15 years will have stable area and Chevron production. Next slide, please. Here are the remaining 4 of the 13 projects. I want to highlight, there are 2 of them are the Hyperion projects. We have 1/2 the stations that is newer. However, the other half of the pump station is really in critical need of rehab. That will provide the redundancy and the lost production of lost capacity that are needed right now to help us to maintain production's capacity at this point. But one of the projects I want to highlight is the Title 22 isolation valve replacement. This project has not been started, but it is critical that we start planning for this so then we can install a valve that is not just for operational flexibility now, but thinking forward when we have pure water come on, that will help us adapt and isolate the system. I can go over that in another time.
I have a question, Chair.
Okay.
Eric, you mentioned earlier in the slides about Hyperion. And it was like within the last month or 2, there was a spike in something. And when you mentioned the 2 projects, the Hyperion pump station and the Force Main project, how is that going to affect these 2 projects when it comes to that?
Yeah, unfortunately, Director, our pump station is limited to just that. It conveys Hyperion's treated water over to our system. And so, eventually when we do get into those projects, they would have an impact on our operations because we'll have to shut that down or open up the pipes for inspection. And of course, we can't convey water at that time. But it won't necessarily affect the water quality like we're seeing in that trend, because those are the treatment processes that are owned and operated by the city of LA. And so our facility is just limited to the pump station alone. Their facility, of course, much bigger. That's what has the biggest impact on our influent water quality.
Next slide, please. This next set of projects are major facility projects specifically for salad plants. And these are funded by and in coordination with the refineries through their fixed payments. And there are two projects related for the JMM facilities. And then the rest of the projects are for Torrance. So all of these projects are total for $3 million. Next slide, please. These are the minor on our projects, including membranes replacements, partially funded by fixed payment by our refinery customers. And then also we have pumps and motors and blowers that the budget is included in the minor on our ops facility project line item. And the last one is our distribution, minor on our distribution thing for that project. Within the distribution system, there are inoperable valves and upgrades to our booster pump stations, including SCADA and connectivity improvement. The distribution system, for the most part, for the last 20 years have been, let's say, like neglected, but then there's a lot of TLC need to be in the distribution system. So we're just needing to plan and then thinking timing wise with all the upcoming shutdown, this will be critical that we are doing all this planning and design work. Next slide, please. This is for administrative and IT projects, mainly for DLD buildings, as some of the IT projects that Isaiah have mentioned. And so the major one is the elevator project. And then we have about $798,000 included for the CIP improvement projects. And we have a breakdown of those individual projects for the IT below. And last but not least, these are the year 2 of the 5-year CIP projects that may, depending on the priorities and conditions of developer or agreement, we may move these projects up or sooner. For example, the Chevron nitrified tank projects, there are 2 projects there. We already have 100% design. And depending on agreements in place by the end of the year, we may move these projects up. That concludes my presentation in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just continue with our revenue rates and then also the funding options. So what you've heard so far is for operating expenses, we have talked about $70.5 million in operating expenses, and then Eric and Susanna with $20.6 million in capital improvement costs. And so the next slide will just kind of outline just our revenues that we are, how we're receiving our revenues today. Depending on the feedback from the board of the current revenue structure and the revenue that you see here. It will kind of put us in a position to understand where we should be for this next fiscal year 26-27. So in the next few slides, you will see 2 funding options for your consideration. And just Director Alvarez, I would like to correct one statement as far as the difference for every 1%. It's a little bit of a different calculation because there are some rounding up for the 1% to get to a flat number for you. So that number that I gave you was 266. It's an average, but it actually is 286. I misspoke.
Close enough.
I'm sorry?
Close enough for everyone.
Okay. So For the 2%, next slide, 2% reliability service charge.
Okay, before, we get going, since we do have a few minutes before 2:30. You know, when you went through all the CIP and later, I have really questions about investing right now on the Hyperion pump station. If I understand what you guys sent over, we're gonna be making a significant investment. We spent a significant amount of money around 2017, 18, expanding the pump station and rehabbing it. That was less than 10 years ago. And I think that cost about $90 million that the district spent on that. If my recollection is right, I could be off base on that, but that was one of those major investments that was made. So we're talking about a lot of money at the Hyperion pump station, and we may or may not need the Hyperion pump station. The city of LA may need it, but I don't see the city of LA being the one that's gonna pay for this.
Director, in this
So
budget,
just some of the items that I was gonna pick on, but that is one, and that's a fairly big dollar amount that you guys projected out there. And then on the bulk chemical storage improvements, you guys have heard me on this before. I'm not quite sure we need to spend the kind of money that, you know, budgeting to do that. I don't think that all these tanks need to be replaced. I get it that you send somebody out there, they're always gonna find it's better to replace it than not. But it's another one of those that I just have an issue with. And on the membrane replacement, we've talked in the past, and I still don't know if we're doing it. I wish we were, that we would budget for membrane replacement on a regular basis, because you know you're gonna have to replace your membranes every 2 to 5 years, depending on which ones we're talking about. So we should just bank on having a reserve fund for membrane replacement. I don't think we do, but if we do, correct me if I'm wrong. And that would be the way to always stay ahead of the membrane replacement instead of having to come up and say, here's a addition to the capital improvement program that is just kind of budgeted. It's a necessary item. We know we have to replace membranes. So, and I think I bring this up, I sound to myself like a broken record, so I'm sure I sound to you guys like a broken record. But as I bring this up every year, why don't we just, most places, just budget? That's something you're gonna do, and you're gonna do it on a fairly regular basis. You know that this membrane is gonna be replaced in 2 years, and this one's gonna be replaced in 5 years, or whatever it is, right? So we buy membranes and we set up and start building the account again for that membrane.
we can look into that. I guess just for clarity, are you suggesting that we should move that into the operations budget?
I would do that, because I think it's just an automatic thing. It has to be done. It shouldn't be capital per se. It is a capital expenditure in the sense you go out and buy them all at once, but it's a recurring capital expenditure. Okay, as long as you're gonna have membrane filtration, you're gonna replace membranes. And it could be our own, whatever type of membranes, right? So I think that should be shifted over and budgeted accordingly. So that you just, it's part of the overall budget, there's a reserve fund, and that's how we buy them. And then the follow-up on that one is most of the membranes should be paid for by the users. So I know we're gonna get quite a bit of it, but we have one set of membranes that goes for the barrier. And this brings up a sore point, between both us and WRD. But we need to revisit our arrangement with WRD, and they should be more committed to I shouldn't say that they, obviously they should be. We need to make sure that they're going to be paying more of the cost of the operations. So again, another reason why the membrane replacement should be treated a little bit different. And we need to sit down with them and say, well, this is, they know that they operate their own treatment plants. I don't know exactly how they budget it. I know I've had these discussions in the past with Festi about this membrane replacement. So that's one area that I think we need to start that discussion. All right, it's 2:30, so I used up my time.
We still do have a quorum as long as Director Fulai is willing to stay with us. Not willing, because I do know you have a,
He's really,
well, yeah, he does have an important meeting to get to. So I want to make sure that,
but he's not able, really not able.
and Wendy, I know we have a few additional slides.
Yes, I'm on the latter two slides. So on the next slide, I will just go over for you option one. And the only thing I want to point out here is one, in both of these options, actually, there is no additional debt that we are proposing that is taken out. The option two, what you're looking at here is the revenues over expenditures, adding in that debt service payment that we pay every year. And then how our net revenues look up against the capital improvement program that we're proposing to you today. So when you take, excuse me, the net revenues in both options, you'll see the same scenario. You have either the difference changes obviously by the liability service charge, but you have 17.5 million in this or in this option that is pay-go or goes towards the capital improvement projects. The remaining would come down from our reserves, from our investment portfolio, essentially. The things that we'll capture here is we're going to be drawing obviously more in reserves in option two than you'll see in option three. But we are able to still fund that reinvestment into our capital infrastructure. But there's also going to be less flexibility in addressing any operational risk or any volatility in our operating cost. And then if you look at the next slide, which is the 3%, that number does go up a little bit as far as the net revenues that are able to contribute to capital expenditure. And you'll see $300,000 less that will be drawing down from capital reserves. So basically here, ultimately what I just from my perspective as the financial officer is the 3% option. It doesn't just allow us to maintain our current essential levels that we're maintaining right now. It also adds to that CIP program. It also addresses some of those rising costs that we talked to you about in workshop one and workshop two about medical costs going up, our retirement, our CalPERS obligations going up. But there's also a little bit of addressing here to that standby revenues that are going to be going away as well. So I will wrap it up. And EJ, if you have anything that you'd like to add in addition.
Yes, directors, I think from my perspective, we've come a long way over the last several years as far as how we're looking at our budget, how we're preparing for the future. A key aspect of that, to Director Alvarez's point, is the renegotiation of some of the agreements that West Basin holds with our customers. Over the past couple of years, we've entered into a new agreement with Marathon. We've entered into a new agreement with the Torrance Refinery. Those agreements were intended to recover the cost of service for what we do for those customers. In 2027, we have a important and I would say crucial opportunity to renegotiate with Chevron. The boiler feed agreements, our low and our high pressure boiler feed agreements will expire in 2027. We've been operating under a compromise on the nitrified agreement. Our hope is to kind of wrap both of those. We have separate agreements into one master agreement with Chevron, again, with the intention of recovering our full cost of service. We have over the last couple of years, in order to put ourselves in position to do this and plan for that 2030, 2031 drop off of the standby charge, and we'll see a corresponding drop off on our debt. But in order to plan for the future, and in light of these new agreements that we have, staff is recommending option number 2, which is a 3% rate increase. This is, I think, due in part to the work that you all have done over the past couple of years to put us in position to do that. Because if you go back just, I would say, to 2020, 2021, and look through those budget presentations, you saw a pretty difficult future ahead. We're talking 7+% rate increases for multiple years for us to be in the position that we're in now. We've been able to get ahead of that through cuts. We've been able to get ahead of that through, I think, strategic rate increases. And I think that 3% is a modest increase this year. And it's one that I'm going to be socializing with our customers, with the understanding that obviously that this is a board decision. And so there's no guarantee, but this is the presentations that you've seen have kind of shaped that discussion. I think you'll recall that we originally showcased a 2% all the way up to a 7%, and we've been slowly narrowing it down. You can see that option 1, the slide before this, does present what that would look like with the 2%. It is manageable, but my only concern is just constantly maintaining our reserves so that we can pay for the future, because as Director Alvarez said, there is a great deal of unknowns in our future, and I think we need to plan for that. So with that, staff is happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Do you have any questions, Rich, about they, or do you have any comments on what you?
Yeah, no, I had a couple questions during this, earlier in the slides. I'm gonna go over real quick. On the membership, can we go back to the membership? And there was, I noticed that we don't have a membership with ICA, Independent Cities Association. And I see there's a couple overlap, like, on the other association, they kind of have the same cities, and so I went on the contract cities. So I was wondering why do we don't have a membership with ICA?
Director provide, let me do a little bit of research on that. I believe that we some time ago were members of ICA. I assume you're referring to the Independent Cities Association. West Basin has partnered with them on several different fronts, and I think we gained access through those partnerships. As I recall, we held a large conference with them that was promoted by West Basin and was water focused down in San Diego. But let me go back and do some research as to why we no longer are members.
To that point, if you're lobbying for joining ICA, it's not necessary for us to join ICA. I don't know if we were ever members. I don't recall that we were members since I've been on the board.
No, it was years ago.
Years and years ago. That doesn't mean that we don't attend, and it doesn't mean that we do not do some things with them. But they are not necessary, and for that matter, neither is Contract Cities. I don't know why we belong to Contract Cities, except that Contract Cities is much more aggressive about pursuing agency memberships. But in either case, we don't need to be members of either of those to enjoy all of the benefits that we would really access. We're not a city. They do some things for cities, and actually what they do for cities doesn't affect us all that much. But there's no net benefit of joining them, and there is a cost.
I understand, just I just noticed that there's cities in the ICA that are within our West Basin.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm saying. We don't have to expand on it right now. My second question, well, not question, but comments I agree, at least with when we talk about retaining and attracting new, entry level and then retaining our own, West Basin staff, I agree with it. We have to do that. We have to enhance, the incentives, whether it's helping, some of our staff to recertify or recertify with, certifications and things like that. I agree with that. And I think the tuition reimbursements are helpful too. Because I know we do that on the private sector with our IBW staff when it comes to enhancing their, ability to get their master's degree or, things like that. And it's, it's very helpful, especially when the industry. And how you retain and attract. So I agree with what you mentioned on that slide. So yeah, that's all my questions and comments.
I don't know if Director Gray has any comments. Director Gray, I believe, is still online.
Oh, Director Gray,
Yeah.
do you have comments on the overall, what you would support in terms of rate increase?
I didn't hear what you said. I've been listening, but ask me again. What was the question?
Oh, we're kind of at the end and staff is presenting two options for rate increases for the board's consideration. One is, option one is a 2% rate increase over the current rate. And then the other one is a 3%, option two. Do you have any comments as to what your preference, if you have any at this time, might be, or any comments at all on terms of the presentation that's we just heard?
All right, where does the 2%? What does that reflect in terms of our status with the banker rating and so forth versus a 3% increase?
From what I see, the debt coverage ratio is about the same, 1.81 for 2% and 1.83 for 3%. And the difference is $6 versus $9, an increase in the current rate.
And so the staff is recommending either or.
No, they're recommending option two. Is that correct, General Manager?
That is correct.
Which is 3%.
And what is option two? Option two is
Option
3
two,
rather than 2.
The difference is that the rate, the reliability service charge will go from $321 currently to $331 under option two. And this is
Yeah.
on top of the Met rate, and the Met rate has gone up 6.2%. So what our customers see is a compounding effect. You have a Met rate increase that we pass through because we're just selling that water. And then on top of that, we're adding to our own rate some additional percentage.
Yeah. I'm not going to really make a final recommendation, 2 or 3 right now. I probably need to look at the numbers more on paper. I know that I have the document here. I haven't been looking at those numbers. Let me look at those numbers further and just hear from the rest of the board on it, and then I'll make a recommendation or give some input to the GM at some point.
Go ahead.
Director Alvarez, if I may, just this year, because the Met rate did go down a smidge, right now the total acre feet per Met is 2,063 acre feet. So if you look at option 3, we're looking at 2,099. So there is a slight decrease and then the rates will start.
And then it will back up
It'll start to gradually
in
increase.
a year. My comments, I'm not gonna support any rate increase, period. And you're looking at a $70,513,000 budget. So I think you can find $590,000 worth of savings there. And then you don't need to increase it at all. With every 1%, it's 290,000. So
Thank you for your input.
I think if you take some of the comments I had on the capital improvement program, which is under the line there, will also be helpful in terms of your concern about drawing down the reserves. Although I think our reserves right now are pretty generous, and we've actually been rebuilding our reserves, which is a good thing. But again, I don't ever support for public agencies to have large reserves because it is not something that's needed. I know that the financial community would love to keep the money on their side of the fence, but it's a basic philosophical argument there.
Okay, and then we do have our customer workshop scheduled, I believe, on May.
So the final slide is the customer workshop schedule. Customer workshop is scheduled for May 13th at 1. Actually, that says 1 p.m., but I believe it's 11:30 in the morning. And then we do have a TBD for May 14th for another board workshop.
I'm happy to coordinate with the board president, but as I mentioned, I'll be reaching out to each of you individually and we collect some feedback because I want to make sure that on May 14th, if we're going to have that, which we're happy to do, is that we're drilling into some specific issues to address any concerns or thoughts from the board. And if there's nothing else, I just want to say thank you very much to everybody that's joining us both in person and virtually. It is Friday, and I know that we have a 9A schedule, so the staff coming together to help us out here, I greatly appreciate it. I think there was a great deal of good information presented, and I'll continue to work with all of you to make sure that we're responsive to any questions that we have from the board.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on. Any director's comments otherwise? Director Gray, do you have any comments for wrapping this up?
Okay. Thank you. I just want to thank staff for the presentation, all the information. Thank you very much.
Likewise, thank everybody for the presentation today, and with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.